What's going on, fine people? And y'all know what it is. If that light's back on, then flight is most definitely on. And yeah, I know I've been away for a little bit, but how can I say this? Life has definitely been lifing for the last few weeks. Full transparency, I lost 3 family members over the span of just 11 days, 2 of them being both of my grandmothers. So it's been, a time to say the least. But just want you guys all out there to know some unsolicited advice, actually. Love on your folks, man. Particularly the elders. You never know how much longer you're going to have them around. So definitely make it a point to check in on them, spend some time with them, do what you got to, because again, like I said, just never know. So I don't want to sad this thing out. Just wanted to give you guys a quick update on what's been going on with me. I'm a real person, and we all deal with stuff. So just continue to send some up for your boy and my family as we get through this tough time. And, hopefully this can be motivation for anyone out there who hasn't touched base with someone in quite some time to do so. I was very close to my grandmothers, talked to them pretty regularly. It's going to be weird to not have them around, to say the very least. Going back home to Louisiana just won't feel the same. But with that being said, let's move on to some Chargers talk, because that's what you guys are all here for, right? And we are in draft season, just less than a month away, actually. And this is one of my favorite times of the year. Always looking forward to it. So without further ado, let's hop into my top 5 running backs, because the Chargers are in the market for at least one new guy to pair in that new backfield. So let's look at the options and who some of my favorites are, shall we? Let's get into it. Nah, I'm just fine with my current morning routine. So yeah, diving into this draft class, man, these running backs are intriguing. And with the Chargers now having Najee Harris as their lead back, there's some opportunity there for someone to step in and become more of that slasher home run threat. And let me say this first and foremost. I was not a huge fan of Najee Harris. So when it was put on our radar that he was one of the Chargers offseason targets, I wasn't all that happy about it, to be completely honest with you. He just didn't have the type of juice that I wanted in the back, and I always felt like he was a little bit underrated. But upon further review, looking at how he was utilized in Pittsburgh, they didn't run him in as much gap and power as they should have for a guy that's 6'1", 6'2", 240 plus pounds. Way too much outside zone, things of that nature, didn't really suit him. And then you see the Chargers do things like finally build up that offensive line as they did throughout free agency. Took a little time. I know a lot of people were very impatient, but when you're talking about guys like Mekhi Becton on the interior, that are just road graders next to a guy like Joe Alt, you probably now have the biggest, at least right side of an offensive line in all of the NFL. And there's potential for this running game to be quite dominant. So with that being said, hopping kind of right into the first back here on my list, I'm going to start at number 5. This one might shock a few people. And no, this is not me being a homer. But again, full transparency, I am a University of Miami Hurricanes fan. So I got to watch a lot of this guy this past season in his lone year in Coral Gables. And that is a one, Mr. Damien Martinez. And to me, he's super underrated. I don't know why he doesn't get more love than what he does in the draft community. I've seen some talk about him here and there, just not nearly enough. At the combine, I want to say that he weighed in at around 217 pounds, and I want to say that it's probably for performance purposes, wanted to run as fast as he could, so he definitely lightened up, because his playing weight is somewhere in between 230 to 235. And I mean, last year he split carries at Miami with literally 4 other backs. They did this committee thing because they were so talented there. The main 2 guys were both he and Mark Fletcher. And I mean, while he only spent 1 season in Coral Gables, and there's probably a reason why, it took him a while to adapt to like that Miami heavy gap running scheme after running a fair amount of zone concepts over at Oregon State. But I mean, he really came on in the back half of the 24 season. He still managed over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. The dude has a career yards per carry average of 6 yards per. That's nothing to sneeze at. So he definitely gets the party going consistently while toting the pill. If it weren't for like Najee Harris's signing, I'd probably be outside of like the boat holding up a please draft Damien Martinez poster. That said, I wouldn't be shocked to see him end up a Pittsburgh Steeler. He just has that feel to him. He's that type of a running back. Seems like he would fit their culture perfectly. As a runner, it's all there. You got power, contact balance, vision, actual surprising lateral movement, which he displays when he gets in his jump cut bag. I mean, the dude's got a little bit of everything. He's got better long speed than you'd expect from a guy that's 230 plus pounds. In pass protection, he's decent. He's definitely more than willing. He will need to work on his anchor and, seeing what he hits. He kind of has a tendency to like lunge with his crown first. So he'll whiff every once in a while. And sometimes on occasion, he'll only get partial contact on a defender that's running free towards the quarterback. So it doesn't always look the prettiest. But I'm not going to say he's a liability there. It just has some room to grow. And I wouldn't exactly call him a consistent 3-down back. I mean, he can handle checkdowns and screens, but he doesn't really have the chops to be a guy teams want to flex out into the slot or ask to run like more than flares or occasional angle routes. But again, he is definitely a my guy. I hate giving that tag because typically what that means is, outside of him not ending up on the Chargers, which doesn't make sense right now unless they want to kind of double down on that type of running back. But these guys also have a tendency to land with like arch rival teams. I'm just kind of preparing myself because one of these dudes I really like is going to end up somewhere else in the AFC West. It's bound to happen. So for Martinez, again, I have him at number 5, and I've got a high 3rd round grade on him. So let's see what the NFL thinks come later on in April. But I think he'll go a little bit earlier than what teams or what some people think. And if he doesn't, lots of other teams lost. Somebody's going to get a special player, and I know that he'll produce on the next level. At least that's how I feel. So my 4th ranked back should come as no surprise as a guy that made the list. He was the Batman of that OSU backfield this past season. But technically, dude was more like Bane, a Broad Street bully of sorts. Outside of Cam Scatterboo, I don't think there's another back that invites contact more than Quinshon Judkins. He relishes in it. Buddy is a complete and utter sicko. But he's also the model of consistency. Whether at Ole Miss or post-transfer to Columbus, we're talking about an automatic 1,000-plus yard rusher that averaged 15 touchdowns a season. You could pretty much lock it up. Dude will roll out of bed and rush for over nearly 100 yards a game and put the ball in the paint. So there's not much to complain about there. His running style is actually similar to Najee Harris's. It's funny how Najee's name keeps coming up here, but he's just got better explosiveness, specifically to the perimeter. Defenders kind of tend to underestimate his speed, and they get caught flat-footed and find themselves out-angled and chasing. But what really threw me for a bit of a loop was the number of outside zone carries he got last year. His build would suggest he's between the tackles bruiser only, but he actually has some juice to the outside, which was really backed up by that 4.48 40 at the combine, which I think surprised mostly everyone, including me. Outside of the overall physicality, though, I think he's an intelligent runner. He does a really good job at pressing the line of scrimmage prior to committing to a lane. That works especially well against tentative interior defensive linemen. And when we're talking about just like finishing runs, dude is violent. And if a defender doesn't bring their hips with them and get under his pads, they're going to be on the wrong end of a Sports Center highlight. So, just prep yourself for it. You got to bring your lunch pail when you're going up against Quinshon Judkins in the hole. And this is definitely a low man win scenario. And even then, sometimes you'll still lose. Now, as far as some of the cons, he isn't exactly the most agile of runners. But I don't think you would suspect that from a player of his archetype. I just wish he had a tad more wiggle to his game, but I'm picking nits there a little bit. And while that 4.4 was awesome, a lot of that boils down to his initial burst in that 10-yard split. Kind of rats him out a little bit when you look at the numbers and the film. Also, it backs it up. His initial burst is elite, but you can see the significant drop off in long speed after about the 35-40 yard mark on tape during a few of those breakaway runs. Seems to run out of a little bit of steam. He doesn't have that endurance to keep that top end speed going over longer distances. And while he isn't terrible in the passing game, I don't really see him being more than an outlet receiver at the next level. He just doesn't have the open field gas to be a huge difference maker. And the pass pro is fine. It's just next to his teammate, who is also on the list, by the way, TreVeyon Henderson, who loves pass protecting probably as much as I love cheesecake. Then what you see on film from Quinshon Judkins as a PBU guy leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's really no fault of his own. TreVeyon Henderson is a maniac in that way. Continuing right along with that OSU connection, my number 3 back in the class is the aforementioned TreVeyon Henderson. Now, this is what I consider the Barry Bonds of the running back class, but like minus the big head and PED allegations. Any touch can turn into a house call with this dude. I mean, he plays much faster, in my opinion, than that low 4.4 he ran at Indy. The top speed is absolutely elite, and he doesn't look like he actually hits his third gear until around like that 45 to 50 yard mark. So the long speed is tremendous, and you can see him just walking away from defenders in the open field on tape. As we talked about before, he shared touches with another top 5 guy in his class, Quinshon Judkins, while at Ohio State. But while Judkins was playing more like that juggernaut role, Henderson was kind of like a pissed off version of Quicksilver. He can and he probably will continue to thrive in a tandem backfield with another north-south downhill enforcer, 1A lead back. But he's so much more than just a change of pace, a complementary runner. I mean, whatever you consider a third down back to be, take that and juice it up about 5 times over and you get Henderson. One of the first things that jumped off on his tape to me was, of course, his explosiveness and speed, yes, but he also runs hard, and not just to the outside, in between the tackles. He finishes his runs and is, look, I don't think I'm going out on a limb here, the best BPU blitz pickup back in this class. So he doesn't even just look to stonewall defenders. Remember I said that dude's a bit of a sicko? When he plants and he uses his base to engage, he puts cats on mid-air mattresses. It's actually pretty funny to see. I'm sure it's not a great experience for them, but just watching it on film is hilarious. He was even deployed as a lead blocker at times, which is wild for like a 5'2", 202-pound speed back. It's just not normal. He's also a guy that can turn a screen on 3rd and forever into a house call as well. You just want to get him out into space and on the perimeter as a receiver against like a linebacker or a safety 1v1. And they'll be reading his nameplate if they don't get hands on him specifically. And speaking of hands, they look pretty natural to me when receiving. The ball security is also as good as it gets. In 590 carries, Henderson has fumbled exactly, subtract the 3, carry the 1. That's right, 0 times, believe it or not. But he's also not without his flaws, of course. I question the vision a bit and the patience. He sometimes can be too fast to the hole, and either he'll find himself being pinballed on the inside, nearly getting his feet tangled up with pulling guards, or just missing the gap entirely in an attempt to like bounce a play that would have been better would have had a better result if he just committed to the north-south track. I also wish he was a little more creative in a phone booth. He's not nearly as consistent a make you miss ball carrier in congested spaces like, let's say, an Ashton Jeanty, which is really not a fair comparison because who is comparable to Ashton Jeanty in this class? If we're being honest, that probably tells you who my number 1 guy is. A little bit of foreshadowing, but never mind. I literally just told you. Forget it. Anyway, there are some injury concerns also as well. I mean, he missed 8 games over the past 3 years with both like a foot and rib injury. So there's a slight durability question for me, but I'm not overly worried about it. If he's part of like a backfield by committee or a 2-headed backfield game plan, then I'm all good. I think he'll be fine. But really big fan of TreVeyon Henderson. To me, I'm thinking he's probably going to be, I wouldn't be shocked if he made it to the end of the first round. Like teams are looking for like that explosive home run threat, someone who can be a 1B back. But I have him graded with a mid-second round grade, around mid-second round grade. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go around that area. But if he goes sooner, then so be it. As far as the Chargers are concerned, if you want Henderson, You're either going to have to take him early or maybe look to trade up for him. But there's so much depth in this class, and there are other options that provide some similar play that I don't think they'll need to, and I'll get to that shortly. But again, TreVeyon Henderson is my RB3 in this class. So let's move on to the next few guys. Now, number 2 and 1 on my list probably feel a little chalky. Most people have them graded similarly. I've even seen some folks have this particular player at number 1, like it's inverted, this player at number 1, my number 1 at number 2. And that's fine if that's how you feel. But then I've seen some other folks just like stick some other names in there at 1 or 2 that don't really make sense. It almost feels like they're just trying to be different to strike up some conversation, maybe some clicks, but you know, it happens from time to time, I guess. But anyway, for me, the second rated running back in this class is Omarian Hampton out of North Carolina. So easy, 6 foot, 220 pound animal. Hampton seems to me like he was born and bred to be a runner in a gap and power scheme. As a matter of fact, speaking of like born and bred, you guys are familiar with the movie Little Giants, right? Remember the scene where Spike's dad talks about massaging his hamstrings with evaporated milk? First of all, ayo, that was crazy. But also, you get what I mean here. Like, Hampton feels like he was another one of those dudes who was cultivated from the ground up to be a power back in a scheme like this. Honestly, Greg Roman might actually have like an Omarian Hampton UNC poster in that RV he was camping out in last year. Never mind. Anywho, after about like the first 3 games I watched of Hampton split between like the 23 and 24 season, one thing specifically stuck out to me. Like, defenders that first squared up tackle that they made or attempt they tried to make on him in the open field, after that, they started to make like business decisions for the remainder of the game. His frame paired with his explosiveness makes for a long afternoon for anyone at the second and third levels. That's not someone that you want to have to tackle with the type of physicality that he utilizes running behind his pads, but that's what makes him special. In addition to that, I feel like playing at North Carolina, specifically in the ACC, kind of suppressed his overall popularity a bit, but you can't deny a guy who goes for over 3,100 yards and 30 tutties over the past 2 seasons. I mean, I don't care where he plays. That is impressive, especially with the style of running back that he is. I think in the league, he's going to be a true volume lead back. And outside of, or should I say in addition to the force that he runs with behind his pads and as a finisher, he really gets out of the blocks when he hits the hole. I mean, when dude plants and explodes upfield, good luck with trying to arm tackle him. And if defenders take poor pursuit angles, they'll almost immediately find themselves transitioning from attacking downfield to pivoting and chasing. And that is not the position you want to find yourselves in at the second or third level. Also, best of luck trying to bring him down with one guy. You pretty much got to bring the whole squad to the party if you want to hear the whistle blow. And that's because Hampton is a high motor, relentless effort runner. Think of the kid in the neighborhood that used to be a headache to play against and pick up basketball because his battery never ran out. And he may not have been much of an outside scorer shooter, but I mean, he would be hell on the boards and he'd rough you up as an on-ball defender. That's pretty much Omarian Hampton, but at 220 pounds and in pads. So do with that what you will. Where his style, I think, is really going to aid an NFL team is in short yardage situations and in the red zone, because the dude has a nose for the sticks and the painted area. It's the type of back that you want to have in crunch time for sure. And as a receiver, he's just okay. I mean, he took a few shovel passes and chunk plays, and man, 1 or 2 of them to the house, but he's more of an outlet guy from the backfield. He can, and I think he will do damage in the screen game just off of pure effort alone. Just the type of player he is. Now, as far as pass protection is concerned, not ideal, but it's not necessarily for like lack of effort. Just sometimes he has issues identifying where the free rusher is coming from. But with like his size and overall functional strength, he definitely has the requisite measurables to get the job done. So I'm not overly concerned there. Now, what does bother me a bit is I don't love his vision, specifically when he's attempting to sift through traffic. When he doesn't immediately identify a crease, he'll either like run up an offensive lineman's back or attempt to bounce it out wide. And I mean, while he has significant initial burst, his speed to the corner and in the open field is just a tick or two above average. So if he was having issues with that in college, I don't see that improving in the NFL. Not necessarily his vision. I mean like being able to outrun guys to the corner. Yeah, in the ACC that worked out for him a bit. I mean, some other matchups not so much. In the NFL, probably even less. So definitely has to work on his patience and improving that vision and feel. But still really like him as my number 2 guy for sure. And now for the belle of the ball. My number 1 back in this class, pretty much everyone's number 1 back. And if he isn't, then, I mean, to each their own, I guess. Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. Quick question. Who was the last back with this much fanfare coming out of college? Probably Saquon Barkley in 2018. Well, I mean, meet the new final boss. And you guys know statistics, but I feel like they need to be mentioned as often as possible because they're pretty much ridiculous. Dude had nearly 2,600 yards rushing and 29 TDs. AJ2K was appointment viewing this past fall, and he squarely placed himself not only as the best back in college football last year, but one of the baddest pill-toting SOBs in college football history, in my opinion, bar none. When we're talking skill set, as far as a running back goes, one of the most important abilities you can have is the ability to create, because things won't always be blocked and developed as they're drawn up. Oftentimes, you're going to be tasked with making something where nothing exists. And Jeanty was the poster child at Boise for this. I mean, we're talking about to the tune of 151 forced missed tackles. Now, just really put that in perspective. Think about the times that he took a handoff because Boise State's offensive line was not very good, and he had to immediately make a guy miss, and then get to the second level and make multiple other defenders miss, and then get into the third level and outrace faster defensive backs. I'm not saying faster than him because it's not often he was caught from behind. I just mean, each level, the speed increases is the way it should work. So he's doing all of that work from levels 1 to 3. From the time that he touches the ball all the way through. Now, consider how many running backs don't even see contact until they get to the second level, or they don't have anyone to evade them. Like, Jeanty was making miracles happen on a regulatory basis that cannot be overlooked. From an athleticism standpoint, the kid has it all. Speed, power, lateral quickness, vision, and all this lends to his ability to manufacture huge splash plays. He's only 5'9", but he is a sturdy 210 pounds. And he uses like that low center of gravity and compact power as nightmare fuel for defenders trying to corral him at and around the line of scrimmage, which again made him very successful at evading tacklers and creating those big runs, or again, like I said before, making something out of nothing. He was more of like a receiving threat in 23, but I mean, he can still be a huge asset there at the next level, however you want to deploy him. I really don't know what else to say about him that you probably don't already know. Like, if you paid attention to any college football last year, you know what the deal is. But what I can say is, since he more than likely will be gone before the 22nd pick, I want no parts of him in the AFC West. Let's all hope, the Raiders do the Raider thing and overdraft someone else that has no business going into the top 10, because I just really don't want to have to deal with that twice a year. He's not perfect. There are some knocks. He definitely isn't the ideal third down back with regard to pass protection. Like, he needs a lot of work from a technique standpoint, and he can definitely be overwhelmed by like bigger, more brutish linebackers and edge guys. The Broncos used up a ton of tread on Jeanty as well. I mean, dude had over 350 carries last year, but I mean, he was their offense, to be completely honest. So it's not like they had much of a choice. Overall, this guy he's it when it comes to the running back position. I can't make very many comparisons. I don't really like to do comps. There are a few guys here and there that remind me of certain players, but with Jeanty, I've seen people make the LaDainian comp. I can see it a bit. You guys know what LaDainian Tomlinson means to me. He's the reason why I'm a Chargers fan in the first place. Y'all know the backstory. I was a fan of his at TCU. I played running back and wide receiver back in my day. So, yeah, LT was kind of my guy. But I can see bits and pieces of the game there. I can completely understand it, but I just have a really hard time comping anyone to LT. It's just like a personal thing for me. But that's the dude, and there's not much else that you can say with regard to negatives in his game. Again, I did mention the amount of carries that they put on him, so he did have to tote the pill a ton, but it was just a situation he was in at Boise, and I think that he'll be fine at the next level. He's got that build that's sturdy. I think he'll last. I don't necessarily see him dealing with a ton of injuries early on, and I think he'll have a really, really high level or just super solid career in the NFL, especially if he gets with the right team and they establish some decent blocking ahead of him. So looking forward to seeing him at the next level, just hopefully not in the AFC West unless he somehow magically finds himself with a lightning bolt on his helmet. But I'm not done, because I have a sleeper and I really like this guy. And to be completely honest with you, if the Chargers are able to pull this off, to me, it's almost going to be as exciting as whomever they pick in the first round. So let's get into that. My wild card is the 5'9", just under 200-pound running back out of the University of Texas, Jaden Blue. Now, calling him my wild card because I can't exactly call him a sleeper now after, that 4.38 he ran at the combine, which he apparently did with the strained groin. But then he follows that up at the UT Pro Day by running a 4.28 and 4.29 respectively. So the buzz is definitely grown. Now, outside of just being a blur, there are few other things that I love about his game. Like the speed in and out of cuts is stupid. Buddy has like rubber for ankles, and any false steps in pursuit will leave even the most agile defenders cooked. You give this man an inch of daylight and you can fire off the cannons, bang the drums, sound the horns, whatever you want. It's 6 points. As far as, the amount of carries in college, he's got a ton of tread left because he's either spent the majority of his career as a backup or being in the 1B role last year. Then if you want to add an extra layer of zhuzh there, the receiving chops make him an even bigger threat. And not just out of the backfield either. Texas split him out often. He showed his ability to haul in the pill with 40 or so receptions, and he had over 50 targets. So he's a legit dual threat back. Now, of course, there are cons, and the red flags are pretty bad, to be completely honest with you. I'm always going to keep it a buck. The pass protection, yikes. Not a ton to talk about there. But even beyond that, the ball security issues. You can't put the pill on the turf. But dude has 8 fumbles and only 214 carries, should I say. And that is an eyesore. But the one thing that can't be denied is Buddy is human nitrous oxide on the field. And I feel like if you add that to that Chargers backfield, it's going to make some fun, explosive opportunities and some points on the board. We're talking about some one-play touchdown opportunities. Just someone who's going to be a menace for defenses to have to consider, and it just gives you different opportunities on the offensive side of the ball to mix some things up in the running game, put defenses on their heels, make them consider his deep speed if you're going to utilize him as a receiver. If you want to flex him out into the slot or have him run some goes or some wheel routes, things like that. You can even use him as a decoy. Teams are afraid and they have lighter boxes, then you can use your power running game there. So it just all works. And to me, I feel like this is someone that you can get. I mean, again, just kind of sort of depends on where teams view him. But right now I have a late 3rd, early 4th round grade on him. And somebody's going to be enamored by the speed and the home run potential. So I would not be shocked if he doesn't make it beyond the 3rd round. But if he's there in the 4th and the Chargers are still looking for a back of that ilk, then I feel like that's your guy. But folks, that's going to be it for me as far as the running backs are concerned. I'll be back in a bit. Gary and Jamie have their prospect breakdowns coming for some other positions. But I shall return soon with my next breakdown. I'm trying to determine what that's going to be. But I'll give you guys an update. And when I have that, you will know. But until then, y'all know who it is. Mr. TOP_FLYT3. And till the next time, y'all take it easy. Be cool. And remember, love on your loved ones. Till next time, I'm gone.